This is easily the largest swamp cooler or evaporative cooler I have ever tried. So for reference, I am 5 foot 11 inches. This seems to be probably about 6 feet. It's just barely taller than me. Obviously, this thing is a really large swamp cooler. Now I've left this cover off so I can kind of put things together, show you how it works, show how impressive this thing is. The hottest day of the week was a couple days ago where it was 100 degrees. I am in Utah. It is a desert climate, so it is really hot, but it's not very humid. So evaporative coolers like this work really well. So in the 100-degree weather, I measured the temperature before I turned this on. It was in the 120s. The sun was bouncing off this. It got really hot. I turned it on, and after just a few minutes, it was down to the low 60s. So yes, this absolutely works. Before I show you how this works, I want to point out that this was sent to me so I could test it out and make this video. So for that reason, I'm going to try to not share a whole lot of my opinion. I just want to show you how well this works and show you some of the things that makes this different from other evaporative coolers that I've tried. So for starters, this has a really big tank. You can fill the tank up all the way. You can turn the fan onto its highest speed and basically run this all day long because of the size of the tank. If you have a water hookup, you can hook it up directly to water. It has a float, so it will turn off the water when it gets to a certain level. So you could run this 24/7 as well. One nice thing about the pump is it has filters, so this will extend the life of a pump. If you've ever used a swamp cooler before, you know how quickly swamp cooler pumps die. On the swamp cooler I have in my house, I replace the pump every year. I have really hard water. Really excited to see how long this lasts and what a difference that filters can make. It also has a really beefy fan. It's got 3 levels on it. One unique thing about this that you'll notice, the fan is pointing straight up. A reason that's nice is with other swamp coolers, usually you have the pads and then you have the fan blowing out. So if there's some water that kind of gets through the pads, fan's just going to blow the water out. So a lot of times you get water droplets. I know in my house inside where I have the swamp cooler, I actually built kind of this wood platform to kind of catch some of the stuff that comes out of it, because if something goes in, it just blows right through. A lot of the water condensation gathers up there. When you have the fan blowing up, you don't have quite so much of that water blowing out or other things. So that's one unique thing about the fan. I don't know if I've seen another swamp cooler with the fan pointing up. Probably my favorite thing about the swamp cooler though is just how thick the pads are. Now you've got pads on all 4 sides of the swamp cooler. They are really thick and they're quite large. The reason I'm impressed by this is I've actually done a bunch of tests with swamp coolers and found that the single most important thing with the pads is actually the thickness. That helps determine how cold it gets. There are also screens or filters in front of the pads, which is really nice if you run this outside. The other day I was running this outside and I had some of those like dandelion weeds that blow in the wind. They got stuck in the filters. They didn't go through the pads, so that's nice. They're not going inside the swamp cooler and not being blown out. They get stopped by the filters. So any of those particles or things that are blowing in the wind, they get stopped by the filter. Usually when I fill up the tank, I just take this off. It just makes it a lot easier to fill up. But all 4 sides of the pads, you have this orange thing where you can kind of take it out. You can stick a hose directly in it so you can fill it up from any side. And you can just pop the pads right into place. There is a place for a screw. I leave the screw out because you don't really need it unless you just don't want someone taking this off. But all 4 pads you can remove with a single screw right here. If you've ever done swamp cooler maintenance and tried to get to the pads, then you know how nice it is that you can take this whole thing off with just a single screw. When this arrives, it comes on a pallet, and the wheels are not installed on the pallet. They come inside the unit. It has 4 caster wheels. 2 of the wheels have locks. You can kind of decide for yourself if you want them on the front or the back. I put the locking casters on the front here, and I think that works out well for me. So let me go ahead and unlock these so I can turn it around. Obviously, it is quite heavy with all the water in it, but the casters are nice and beefy casters, so it is pretty easy to push around and maneuver. Let me go ahead and lock these. We've got the cord in the back here. Now, it looks like it was designed on the plastic here to have the cord wrap around it. The little hooks that come out, they're not big enough to hold the full cord. So I usually just wrap the cord up in a circle and just hang it on a single hook. The reason I have my power station out here is so we can measure the wattage when I turn this on. Another cool thing about this swamp cooler is it actually has a sensor inside. So if you're out of water, you can't turn things on. There is a switch on the back here. So you've got one on-off switch, and that is for the pump. So if you just want to get the pads saturated, you can turn that on. And then the knob has 3 levels. Now, I'm just realizing that if I turn this on, I'm probably going to blow over my phone. So let me change the angle real quick. So I'll go ahead and turn the pump on now. And it looks like with just the pump on, we are using about 40 watts of power. You can hear that the pump really is not that loud. You can probably hear the water more than you can the pump. Let me go ahead and turn the fan on to the lowest level. So this is what it sounds like right up next to the swamp cooler. I've had this in my house. You can have conversations, normal conversations with this on the lowest level, really not all that loud. So right now we are at about 800 watts on the lowest fan setting. So the fan does use a significant amount of power. It is a fairly beefy and large fan. Let's go to level 2. This feels so nice. Oh, cool. Oh, love it. At level 2, we're using 950 watts of power. And here we go to level 3. And at level 3, we're using about 1100 watts of power. So this is what it sounds like standing right next to the swamp cooler. This is how loud it is. Honestly, I don't think it's that bad. And if you're standing directly in front of it, obviously you are going to hear the wind, so that's going to add a bit to the noise. It is really windy. I've been trying to measure the temperature of the air coming out of it. And the tricky thing with that is how cold this gets really kind of just depends on what the humidity level is like, what the current air temperature is like outside. I kind of want to just kind of explain a little bit more of what it actually feels like in different environments. When I have it outside like this and I'm standing in front of it, and I mean, not even close, but just in the general area, it feels absolutely amazing. A lot of that is just because it's a powerful fan. It's blowing you off, it's cooling you down. But when I tested this in 100-degree weather, I was getting air coming out of this nearly 40 degrees cooler. So you are getting really cool air. Another thing I tried with this is just kind of pointing it in my shed that was over 100 degrees and just having the air moving about and the nice cool air. It just felt so nice. I never work in my shed in the summer because it's unbearable. With this, not even right up next to the door, but a few feet away from it, that was enough that it was pleasant to work in. And probably the most impressive location I put this was in my garage. Now, most people's garages get really hot. I took the cars out, I put this in the garage, and the amazing thing is, as I was walking in the garage, you could feel the heat until you get to right about where the wind is blowing, and then all of a sudden it is just like a very dramatic difference. No longer hot, completely comfortable, nice and cool. This does really well in the garage. I also put this in my house, and one important thing to point out with in the house is if you're trying to go through single doors, it's not going to fit. It is too big. Fortunately, we have double doors, so I was able to open both doors, get this to come through the house. I tried it a couple different areas in the house, and it does such a great job. I have an unusual house. It's a dome house, so it has very big open spaces. If I put this in our doorway, turn it on, go over to our dining room, it just is nice and breezy. Where I think this would do best is in workshops, like if you have a mechanics workshop, perfect for that. Barns or stables. If you have a greenhouse with opening on one end and the other, this would do really well in a greenhouse. I once helped out with a corporate event where we had these vinyl tents, and inside the tent was super hot. We had about 200 people. We got an evaporative cooler like this, turned it on, put it in one end, had the doors open on the other end, and it is a night and day difference for how cool it can get if you have a nice powerful swamp cooler like this. Another thing of note with this is you can move these up, so you can even have some going up some going down. So if you want to point the air up, which I did inside my house because we have a loft area that gets really hot, you can do that. If you want to point it down, you can do that as well. And a really cool thing with this is it actually has a fan inside, and all the fan is doing is spinning gears to have these blades rotate left and right. There's no electricity, there's no motor in the fan. The fan just uses the power from the wind coming out to move the blades. I think that's pretty clever. I've been in contact with the company that makes this. I've asked them things about getting replacement pumps or replacement pads. And it sounds like the company is a fairly new company, I think about 3 years old, and they do offer replacement parts for sale. They've told me they haven't had to replace any pumps yet, which I think is amazing because the pump has a filter. So no pumps that have failed. That's really, really cool. But if you do get this and you need replacement parts eventually, you can get it directly from the company. Using this has been a ton of fun. It is so nice and cool. Every place I've put it in, it just feels nice and breezy and cool. Check out the price on the website. I'm going to be recording this. This is less expensive than other swamp coolers of a similar size. This is a really impressive swamp cooler. Great way to cool down.